Soft thunder rolls in the background. The narrator's voice begins, calm but haunting. In the quiet heart of an African village, where mist kissed the green hills every morning and the drums of thunder often echoed across the valleys, a cry broke through the night. It was not just any cry, it was the cry of a newborn, and the storm that followed felt almost alive. The wind roared like a wild spirit. The rain poured down in silver sheets, drumming against thatched roofs. Inside a small clay hut, lit only by the flickering glow of an oil lamp, Nadia, a young woman no older than 20, gripped the edge of a mat, her breath trembling as pain rippled through her body. The old midwife, Mama Nuru, worked swiftly, her wrinkled hands steady despite the thunder that shook the walls. Outside, lightning struck a tree, and the villagers whispered to one another. When lightning strikes during birth, spirits walk the earth. Moments later, the storm paused as if holding its breath. And then, a baby's cry filled the air. Mama Nuru lifted the child gently, her face softening into a smile. "It's a boy," she whispered. "Strong lungs, strong heart." Nadia's tears mixed with the rain that slipped through the roof. She reached out, her arms trembling as she held the tiny, warm body against her chest. "His name," she whispered through tired breaths, "will be Tari." The wind grows faint, a soft lull in the storm. When the first cries faded, Mama Nuru began to bathe the newborn in a clay bowl of warm water mixed with herbs. The rain had slowed to a whisper. Nadia watched in silence, exhaustion and relief painted across her face. But then, something changed. As the water ran over Tari's back, a strange mark began to appear. It was circular, delicate lines spreading outward like roots, glowing faintly beneath the baby's soft skin. Mama Nuru froze. Her hands trembled. She leaned closer, her eyes widening with fear. "Nadia," she whispered, voice shaking. "Cover the child." "What is it?" Nadia asked, panic rising in her chest. The midwife's lips moved silently before she spoke the words that made the air turn cold. "The mark of the returning star." Lightning flashed again outside, throwing their shadows against the wall. Nadia stared at her child, confusion and fear mixing inside her. "What does it mean?" she asked. Mama Nuru's face went pale. She shook her head slowly. "I have seen this once before, long ago. This mark comes once in a century, and it brings both blessings and graves." Her voice was barely a whisper now. "Do not show it to anyone, Nadia, not even your husband. The village will not understand. They never do." Then she crossed herself, muttering a prayer as thunder rolled again, deeper this time, almost like a growl from the sky. Nadia's heart pounded. She looked down at her baby, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the fear swirling around him. The mark, faintly glowing like moonlight trapped under skin, pulsed softly with every heartbeat. She covered it quickly with a cloth, clutching him tighter to her chest. Mama Nuru gathered her things and left without another word. A quiet pause. The narrator's tone softens. Alone now, Nadia listened to the storm outside. The wind cried through the cracks in the walls, and every rumble of thunder felt like a warning from the heavens. Her mind spun with Mama Nuru's words. Blessings and graves. Was her son chosen or cursed? She didn't know. All she knew was that she loved him. And that love was the only thing stronger than the fear growing in her heart. Nadia whispered a prayer over Tari, her voice breaking. "Whoever you are, my son, whatever this mark means, may the spirits protect you." Outside, the storm slowly began to fade, leaving only the soft tapping of rain. Nadia placed Tari on a woven mat near the fire. For a moment, peace returned. the kind that comes after chaos. But as she turned to check on him one last time, the candle flickered, and in that dim light she saw it again, the mark glowing faintly, as if alive. The thunder murmured far in the distance. The mark pulsed once, twice, then dimmed. Nadia's breath caught in her throat. She sat beside him, her hand trembling as she brushed his cheek. And while the rest of the village slept beneath the dying storm, Nadia whispered softly into the night. "Sleep, my child. Whatever walks with you, let it walk gently." The camera fades out on the flicker of the candle and the faint glow of the mark, a silent promise that this birth was only the beginning. Sound. Morning birds faintly calling. Wind rustling through trees. The narrator's voice begins, calm, but heavy with emotion. The storm had passed, but it left whispers behind. For 3 days, the clouds hung low over the village of Ekun, as if the heavens themselves were still watching. Inside her small hut, Nadia cradled baby Tari close to her chest. His soft breathing was the only comfort she had. The mark on his back, that strange, circular symbol, had faded to a dull shadow, but Nadia could never forget the way it once glowed in the dark. She kept it hidden, wrapping him carefully each time she bathed him, even from her husband, Kelechi. At first, life seemed normal. Kelechi went back to his fishing, and the villagers offered their usual smiles. But soon, whispers began to stir. Quiet at first, like wind passing through grass. "Did you hear? The storm that night didn't just bring rain. They say her child was born when the sky was angry. Maybe that's why the lightning struck the old tree." The word spread faster than the river's current. Nadia would walk to fetch water, and the women would stop talking as she passed. She could feel their eyes on her back, hear their muffled laughter. Children who once played outside her hut now ran away when they saw her. One afternoon, when she stepped into the market to buy cassava, a group of women stopped her path. One of them, Ngozi, sneered. "So, this is the one who birthed a storm child. Tell me, Nadia, does he cry with thunder too?" Nadia lowered her gaze, clutching her basket tighter. She didn't reply. She walked away, her heart sinking with every step. Transition sound. Soft drum beats fading into the sound of river water. Kelechi noticed the distance growing between them. He was once proud of his wife. Kind, hard-working, respectful. But now, people barely greeted him at the river. Some fishermen even refused to share their nets with him. One night, as he repaired his fishing traps by the fire, he finally spoke. "Nadia." "They talk," he muttered. "They say storms follow our child." Nadia froze. Her hands trembled as she stirred the pot of soup. "People talk when they do not understand," she said quietly. Kelechi sighed, staring into the flames. "Still, you must admit, the night he was born, thunder nearly tore the sky. And last week, lightning struck my nets again." Nadia turned to him, eyes wide. "That is just weather, Kelechi. You cannot blame—" He slammed his hand against the floor. "Can I not? You have brought this upon us." That woman, Mama Nuru. She looked at me as though I carried a curse. His voice broke with anger and fear. "I work for my name, Nadia. I cannot have the village think my blood is tainted." Nadia said nothing. She only held Tari closer, her eyes glistening with silent tears. Sound fades to a gentle night breeze and distant thunder. Days passed. Weeks followed. The whispers became bolder. Someone claimed they saw a strange light coming from Nadia's hut at night. Another swore that the baby's cry made dogs howl. Fear spread faster than truth. Only Mama Chica, Kelechi's old mother, stayed by Nadia's side. She would visit with herbs and porridge, her wrinkled face filled with quiet kindness. One evening, as they sat outside watching the fading sun, Mama Chica spoke softly. "My daughter," she said, "people fear what they cannot name. They look at that mark and see danger. But such marks, they call fate. And fate," she paused, "fate has teeth." Nadia looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" The old woman smiled sadly. "Fate bites both ways, my child. Sometimes it takes before it gives." Her words stayed with Nadia long after she left. Night soundscape deepens, crickets, wind through leaves, distant thunder. That night, Nadia couldn't sleep. She lay beside Tari, watching the shadows dance on the wall. Every time lightning flashed outside, she remembered Mama Nuru's warning. Blessings and graves. As the rain began to fall softly, she closed her eyes and drifted into uneasy sleep. But dreams found her quickly. She saw a shadowed figure walking through fire, tall, faceless, holding a burning staff. The figure whispered her baby's name in a voice that echoed like wind through hollow wood. "Tari! Tari!" She tried to reach him, but the ground beneath her feet turned to ash. The mark on Tari's back began to glow in the dream, brighter and brighter, until it burned through the darkness. Nadia woke with a scream, sweat clinging to her face. The storm outside had grown wild again, rain pounding like drums of warning. She rushed to check Tari. He was sleeping peacefully, the cloth still covering his back. But as lightning flashed through the window, she saw it, the faint shimmer of that same mark, glowing beneath the fabric. Her heart trembled. She pulled him close and whispered through tears, "Please, whatever you are, leave my son in peace." Soft fade out. Narration slows. Voice somber and suspenseful. The next morning, the storm was gone, but the whispers grew louder than ever. And somewhere deep inside, Nadia began to wonder if the stories were true, if her child was really meant for something greater, or something terrifying. The mark on his back had not disappeared. It was only waiting for the time to speak. Sound, faint drum beats, the hum of wind through trees. The tone is mysterious, heavy with tension. 3 days after the storm, the village of Ekun was restless. Goats bleated nervously. Birds flew in strange circles over the fields. And in the market square, a traveler appeared. A woman draped in layers of indigo cloth, her wrists covered in charms that jingled softly with each step. They called her Abeni, the wandering seer from the hills of Oyo. No one had seen her in years, but her name still stirred the old ones. They whispered that she spoke the language of spirits, and that her eyes could see both birth and burial in a single glance. She arrived without greeting anyone, her long staff tapping rhythmically against the ground. When she stopped in the middle of the market, the chatter died instantly. "Where is the child born under the storm?" she asked, her voice low and steady. A cold silence swept through the crowd. Inside her hut, Nadia was rocking baby Tari to sleep when she heard the distant commotion. The name Storm Child reached her ears again, and her heart sank. Moments later, Mama Chica burst through the door, breathless. "They've called for you, Nadia. The seer. She wants to see the baby." Nadia froze. "Why?" "Because she knows things, my child. You cannot hide forever." Transition. Low hum of drums, footsteps on dirt path. The entire village gathered near the great baobab tree. Abeni stood there like a shadow from another world, her staff marked with strange carvings. When Nadia arrived, holding Tari close, the crowd parted silently. Abeni's gaze fell upon the child, calm at first, then narrowing with unease. She reached into a pouch and drew out a handful of white chalk, which she sprinkled on the ground. It hissed faintly, as if reacting to unseen fire. Then she spoke. When thunder split the heavens the night this child was born, a seal was broken. That mark on his back, it is no ordinary scar. It is the mark of Ezu, the harbinger of balance, both destruction and renewal. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Nadia's knees weakened. "What does that mean?" she whispered. Abeni's eyes were distant, as if seeing something beyond sight. Long ago, the spirits foretold that a child would come during the clash of storm and moon, born between anger and mercy. He will walk a path of pain, and through him, the ancestors will settle their old debts. Kelechi's face turned pale. "Debts? What debts?" The seer turned to him, her tone suddenly sharp. "Your bloodline carries guilt. Centuries ago, your forefather betrayed the priest of the river. He sealed the spirit's gift for his own greed. That curse was never lifted, and now the spirit has sent this child to finish what was begun." The crowd murmured in fear. One man shouted, "So, he's cursed?" Abeni's staff struck the ground with a heavy thud. "No, he is chosen. But know this, chosen ones rarely live in peace." The words echoed like thunder. Sound, rising wind, villagers whispering, suspenseful music swelling softly. Nadia's tears spilled freely. "He is just a baby," she pleaded. "Why would the spirits punish him?" Abeni looked at her with pity. "The spirits do not punish. They remember. The storm that brought him is not his enemy, but his guide. When he turns 7, the mark will awaken. When it burns again, you must take him to the river that speaks." Nadia clutched Tari tighter. "And if I don't?" The seer's eyes darkened. "Then the storms will not stop, and your land will drown." Transition, silence, then soft wailing of the wind. That night, the village was divided. Some believed the seer, bowing in fear of the prophecy. Others called her a liar, accusing Nadia of witchcraft. By morning, rumors turned to threats. Someone painted a symbol on Nadia's hut, the mark of banishment. Another left a dead chicken by her doorstep. Kelechi was torn between shame and fear. "We cannot stay here," he said, his voice breaking. "They will harm us." But Nadia's spirit was strong. "Leave! And go where, Kelechi? My son's fate is tied to this land. We cannot run from the sky." Sound, fire crackling, night insects chirping. Later that night, Abeni visited her quietly. She carried a small calabash bowl, filled with water that shimmered faintly even in darkness. "The spirits will not rest, Nadia. But there is a path, though it is not easy." She dipped her fingers into the water and touched the mark on Tari's back. The baby stirred, but did not cry. "When the time comes," Abeni said, "you must remember this word, Ezulani. It is the name of the river and the spirit bound within. It will recognize its own." Then she placed the calabash on the floor and whispered, "Keep this water safe. When the mark burns, pour it upon him. That will be your sign to begin the journey." Before Nadia could ask more, Abeni turned and walked into the darkness, her bracelets fading with each step, until only the wind remained. Sound. Night fades into dawn. Gentle drums return. When the sun rose, the village seemed quiet again. But in the light of morning, Nadia saw it. The mark on Tari's back, glowing faintly like embers beneath the skin. And in that glow, she remembered Abeni's warning. Chosen ones rarely live in peace. She looked toward the river beyond the hills, its surface glimmering under the rising sun. Her heart was heavy with fear, but somewhere within it, a spark of courage began to rise, because deep down, she knew the prophecy had only just begun. Sound. Low rumble of thunder. Slow heartbeat drum. A dark wind howls faintly. Weeks turned into months, but the village of Ikun did not forget. The whispers, once soft as wind, grew sharp as knives. Children pointed at Nadia's hut and ran away laughing. Women turned their faces when she came to fetch water. Even the old friends who once shared her laughter now crossed the road when she passed. Inside that hut, Nadia lived between fear and faith. Each night she prayed over her son, little Tari, whose innocent smile could melt the hardest heart. Yet each time thunder rolled across the sky, she would clutch him tighter, remembering Abini's words. Kalechi, her husband, had changed too. The proud fisherman who once sang to the river now stared at it in silence. His nets came back empty, his hands cracked from work, his spirit weighed down by shame. The villagers' mockery burned him deeper than any storm. "That's the father of the spirit child," they'd whisper. "His house is cursed. His nets will never fill." One evening, as rain clouds gathered over the hills, Kalechi slammed his fishing basket to the ground. "I can't take it anymore, Nadia," he cried. "Everywhere I go, they talk about the boy." "Your boy." Nadia's eyes widened. "He's your son too, Kalechi." He turned away, trembling with rage. "No, he's not. He's something else. Something the gods should have taken back the night he was born." Lightning flashed across the dark sky, splitting the moment with a crack that echoed through their hearts. That night, the storm came without warning. Winds tore through the village. The roofs of huts flew like leaves. In the distance, a bolt of lightning struck the fishing grounds. Setting nets ablaze, men screamed as fire danced on water. When the storm ended, half of Kalechi's fishing tools were gone, and with them his last pride. By morning, the rumors spread faster than the flood. They said the child's cry had called the storm. They said his laughter had cursed the nets. They said Tari was born to bring ruin. At the chief's compound, the elders gathered. Their voices were low but firm. "This cannot continue," said one. "The land rejects the boy." "We must cleanse the curse," another added. "The spirits demand a sacrifice." The chief, an old man whose face carried the wear of too many years, nodded slowly. "Bring them forth. The mother and the child. Let the gods decide." When Kalechi heard the decree, he broke. He drowned his pain in palm wine, his eyes bloodshot and hollow. By nightfall, his hands trembled not from drink, but from guilt and fear. Inside the hut, Nadia sat in silence, humming softly to Tari. He was sleeping, his small chest rising gently, his face peaceful. Kalechi burst through the doorway, his voice shaking. "They're coming tomorrow," he said. "The elders will cleanse the village. They will take him, Nadia. They will take our boy." Her breath caught. "Then we will run." "Run?" He laughed bitterly. "To where? The world knows his mark. The spirits will find him anywhere." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I don't care what the world says. He is my child, Kalechi. If the world hunts him, then let the world come for me too." Sound. Drums build tension. Thunder returns in the distance. The next day, the ceremony began at the village square. Drums pounded. Smoke from burning herbs filled the air. The people chanted, calling on the gods to lift the curse. Then, as if by cruel fate, a small child from the crowd collapsed suddenly. Her mother screamed for help, but before anyone could move, the child went still. A cry rose from the people. "It's him! It's the marked one!" All eyes turned toward Nadia's hut. In that instant, fear became fury. Men grabbed sticks and torches. Women wailed, and standing at their front, Kalechi, drunk and trembling. His voice cracked as he shouted, "If the boy brings death, then let the gods take him tonight." Nadia's heart shattered. She snatched Tari from his mat and ran. ran past the crying women, past the burning torches, into the open field beyond the village. Rain began to pour, sharp, heavy, unrelenting. The sky flashed white with lightning, guiding her steps through the darkness. Behind her, the villagers' voices faded into the roar of thunder. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't stop. The forest loomed ahead, dark and endless. Branches scratched her face, her feet sank into the mud. Still she ran, holding Tari tight against her chest. Sound, deep thunder roll, rain hitting leaves, slow heartbeat sound effect. Lightning flashed again, illuminating her path, revealing the twisted roots and fallen trees before her. Each flash was like a whisper from the heavens, pushing her forward. She fell once, scraping her knee, but rose again, trembling and soaked. And as she ran deeper into the wild, something inside her shifted. She no longer felt fear, only determination. The storm raged on, but in its roar, she felt the rhythm of fate calling her name. Walk toward it, she whispered to herself. Not away, and with every step she did. Toward the unknown, toward destiny, toward whatever truth waited beyond the storm. Sound fades. Just soft rain and babies breathing. By the time the night broke into dawn, the village of Ikun had lost sight of her. The mother and her marked child had vanished into the wilderness, and the legend of the curse was only just beginning. Sound. Soft wind rustling through trees, distant thunder fading away. The forest was endless, a world of shadows, whispers, and hidden eyes. Nadia stumbled through mud and roots, her arms weak from carrying Tari. Her feet bled, her dress torn, yet she did not stop. The storm had finally quieted, leaving behind a sky thick with mist and the faint scent of rain-soaked earth. She had fled everything she knew, her home, her people, her husband. All she had now was the baby in her arms, and the prophecy burning in her heart. By the third day, her strength began to fade. She hadn't eaten since the night of the storm. Tari whimpered softly, hungry, cold, unaware of the fear surrounding him. Nadia sank to her knees beside a fallen tree. "Please," she whispered to the heavens, "don't let him die here. Not like this." Her voice broke, echoing faintly among the tall trees. Tears mixed with the rain as her eyes closed in exhaustion. The forest was silent for a moment. Then came the faint sound of footsteps. From the shadows emerged an old man, bent but strong, his skin dark as bark, his hair white as the moonlight. He carried a wooden staff carved with strange symbols, and his eyes, deep, calm, ancient, watched her carefully. "You've come far," he said softly, "farther than most mothers would dare." Startled, Nadia pulled Tari close. "Who are you?" she asked, voice trembling. "A friend," the old man said, kneeling beside her. "They call me Olu. I live where the trees remember the old stories." He touched the baby's back gently, and his hand froze. His eyes widened as he saw the mark, the circular pattern glowing faintly beneath the baby's skin. "Ah," he breathed. "The mark of the Sky Weaver. So it has returned." Nadia frowned, confusion and fear battling inside her. "What does it mean?" "They called it a curse." Olu looked up at her, his gaze steady. "A curse? No, child. A curse is born of hate. But this mark—" He paused, tracing the shape lightly with his finger. "This is a burden of power, a sign that the world will soon be tested." He helped her stand and led her deeper into the forest, through vines and moss, past glowing mushrooms and whispering winds, until they reached a small clearing surrounded by ancient trees. At its center stood an old shrine made of stone, covered in carvings, stars, circles, and the same root-like lines that matched the mark on Tari's back. "Here," Olu said, "the sky weavers once walked, those who bridge the world of spirits and man." In the days that followed, Nadia regained her strength. Olu shared his food, herbs, and knowledge. He spoke of the ancient bloodlines, of children born under storms, chosen to carry messages between heaven and earth. He told her how each line in the mark represented a trial, moments when the child's heart would be tested by fear, love, and choice. "It is not the mark that decides destiny," Olu said, stirring his pot by the fire. "It is what the heart does when the storm comes." Nadia listened, every word sinking deep. She began to understand that her son was not cursed. He was chosen. But chosen for what, she did not yet know. Seasons passed. The forest became their home. Nadia learned to grind herbs, to heal small wounds, to pray with the rhythm of the wind. Olu taught her to listen, not just to words, but to the silence between them. Tari grew, too, a quiet boy with bright eyes and a strange calmness. He would often stare at the sky for hours, tracing shapes in the clouds, humming tunes that no one had taught him. Sometimes, when he laughed, the leaves around them rustled, even when there was no wind. Olu would smile quietly when that happened. "The forest knows him," he'd say. "It recognizes its own." But one night, as the moon rose full and silver, the air changed. The forest grew restless, birds fled, animals hid, and the wind carried whispers again. Olu stood outside, his eyes fixed on the sky. "It begins," he murmured. Nadia stepped beside him, holding Tari's hand. "What begins?" He pointed to the moon, now slowly turning red. "The sky weaver's sign. The time of choice draws near." Nadia's heart raced. "What must I do?" Olu turned to her, the firelight flickering across his face. "You must remember what the world has forgotten, that love is stronger than prophecy. Protect that truth, Nadia. When the mark glows again, he will need your courage, not your fear." That night, as the crimson moon rose higher, the mark on Tari's back began to glow brighter than ever before. It pulsed like a heartbeat, steady, strong, alive. Nadia watched in awe and dread. Olu closed his eyes and whispered, "The heavens have chosen. The boy's path is written. But only a mother's heart can change its ending." And as thunder rumbled faintly in the distance, the mark dimmed once more. The storm had not yet returned, but fate had already begun to move. Sound fades out. Soft wind through leaves, heartbeat, distant owl call. Narrator, softly. In the heart of the wilderness, Nadia found not safety, but purpose. For sometimes the forest does not hide us from destiny. It prepares us for it. Sound. Distant wind howling, dry leaves rustling, faint echo of drums fading into silence. Time passed. 7 long years. In the forest, life grew quiet, slow, almost sacred. Nadia's once weary face now carried the calm strength of a woman who had learned to listen to the wind. Her son, Tari, had grown tall and gentle, his eyes deep with wisdom far beyond his age. But in his silence, there was always something ancient, something waiting. The forest had become their world. Olu's teachings had shaped them both. Each morning began with prayer. Each night ended in stories of the sky weavers, the guardians who once healed the earth when darkness rose. But lately, even the forest had begun to whisper differently. The rivers were shrinking. The birds no longer sang at dawn, and the trees, once bright with green, now shed their leaves before their time. Olu stood one evening by the shrine, his eyes heavy with worry. The balance is breaking. he said quietly. The land suffers. The world of men bleeds into the spirit world again. Nadia watched as smoke drifted across the horizon, not from fire, but from dust. Something was dying, out there. Sound shift, faint coughing, dry footsteps, flies buzzing. Atmosphere of decay. Far away, in the village of Ekun, despair had become a way of life. The rivers had dried, leaving cracked earth where water once danced. The crops had failed, withered by endless heat. Even the animals, once plentiful, had begun to vanish into the wilderness. The people whispered that the gods had turned their faces away. The chief sat beneath the baobab tree, his wrinkled hands trembling. "We have prayed," he said to the elders. "We have sacrificed. Still, the land dies." An old woman, blind but wise, leaned forward. "You remember the seer's words," she rasped. "When the marked child returns, fate will decide." Silence fell across the gathering. Everyone remembered. The prophecy, the mark, the child who vanished into the storm. "Find them," the chief said finally. "Find the mother and her son. Perhaps the heavens will listen once more." Sound, forest wind, footsteps through dry grass, faint drum beats of searchers. Days later, men entered the forest carrying torches and spears. They searched for days, calling out through the mist. And when they finally found the old shrine, they saw smoke rising, the smell of herbs and food cooking. There, standing at the edge of the clearing, was Nadia, older, stronger, her eyes no longer afraid. "The chief calls for you," one of the men said. "The village is dying." Behind her, Tari appeared, tall, calm, his eyes glowing faintly in the sunlight. He looked not like a boy anymore, but like something born of both earth and sky. Nadia's heart twisted with fear and pride. "We can't go back," she whispered to Olu that night. "They will blame him again. They will hurt him." Olu placed a hand on her shoulder. "The world cannot run from its prophecy forever, child. What is written will find its way, whether we walk toward it or hide from it." Tari, sitting near the fire, spoke softly. "Mama, I dreamt of our village. I saw people crying, the wells empty, the ground cracking open. I think they need us." Nadia turned toward him, her heart breaking. She saw the light in his eyes, the same glow that once frightened her. Now, it gave her courage. Sound, slow tribal drum, rising like a heartbeat. And so, as dawn broke, they began their journey home. Through the forest paths, across the dry hills, and into the land of silence. When they reached the edge of the village, the people gathered. Weak, thin, desperate. The chief limped forward, leaning on his staff. When he saw Tari, his eyes widened with awe. "The mark has returned," he whispered. "May the heavens forgive us." Nadia walked beside her son, her head high. The villagers parted like waves as they entered. Dust rose around their feet, and for a brief moment, a single drop of rain fell from the cloudless sky. A murmur spread through the crowd, then another drop, then another. And when Tari looked up, the heavens seemed to stir. Sound, soft rainfall begins, distant thunder, faint choral hum building. For the first time in years, the scent of rain filled the air. The villagers wept, some from fear, others from hope. Mama Chica, now older and frail, stepped forward and fell to her knees. "The gods have sent them back," she cried. "Our redemption has come." But Nadia knew deep in her heart, this was only the beginning. The true storm had yet to come. Sound, distant wind, soft chanting, and the hum of drums growing slowly louder. For weeks after Nadia and Tari's return, the rain blessed the land again. Crops sprouted, wells filled. The air smelled of green life once more. The villagers spoke in whispers, half in awe, half in fear. Maybe the mark brings blessings after all, some said. No, others argued. It is testing us. The mark gives before it takes. Even the chief, who once demanded the child's exile, treated Tari with reverence. But behind his kindness, there was caution. He remembered the old seer's words. When the moon bleeds thrice. And now, that time had come. That evening, the sky turned heavy with clouds. The wind carried the scent of thunder, and animals grew restless, crying in the distance. Nadia stood outside her hut, staring at the horizon, where the moon began to rise, bright, full, and silver. But as it climbed higher, its color began to shift, from silver to rust, and finally to deep, glowing red. The villagers gasped. Drums stopped. Every child was pulled indoors. Every elder whispered prayers. The moon had bled for the third time. The prophecy had come. Sound, slow, rhythmic drums, heartbeat of the earth. Tari stood silently in the center of the village square, bathed in red light. The mark on his back began to throb, glowing through his shirt like living fire. He trembled, eyes wide, his breath quick and shallow. "Mama," he whispered. "It's burning." Nadia rushed to him, holding his shoulders. "It's okay, my son. Breathe. Just breathe." But her words barely reached him. The air grew thick. The sky cracked open with thunder. Lightning flashed, and the villagers fell to their knees in terror. The winds howled, tearing through the fields, scattering roofs and fires alike. The red moon loomed larger, and its light poured over the land like blood. In that storm of chaos, the chief shouted over the wind, "Protect the village! To the shrine!" But then came a scream. One of the men pointed toward the river. The water had turned dark, swirling unnaturally. Fish floated lifeless on its surface. Panic spread. People cried, prayed, and cursed. And in the middle of it all, Tari collapsed. Sound, heartbeat slowing, thunder echo fading into eerie silence. Nadia screamed his name, falling beside him. His body convulsed, the mark glowing brighter, pulsing in rhythm with the thunder. His eyes rolled back, his lips moving on their own. He began to speak, not in any language known to men. It was a deep, echoing voice, layered with power. The voice of the Sky Weaver. "Man's fear creates his demons," the voice said through him. "Faith heals the earth." The villagers froze. Every torch flickered. Every whisper stopped. The spirit continued, the storm swirling harder around them. The curse was never in the child. It was in your hearts. You feared what you did not understand, and in fear, you poisoned the land. Nadia held Tari's hand, tears streaming down her face. "Please," she cried to the heavens. "Spare him! He's just a boy." The voice softened, almost like wind through trees. "A boy, yes, but born of faith and fire. His heart has chosen." Then the mark on Tari's back flared, a blinding light that split the storm. It spread across the sky, weaving patterns of gold and silver like a great celestial web. Thunder roared, not in fury, but in release. The rain began to fall again, heavy, cleansing, alive. The villagers dropped to their knees, weeping as the winds calmed and the fires died. The earth drank deeply from the new rain. Flowers began to bloom even in the cracks of the dry ground. And as the moonlight faded from red to white, Tari lay still, his mark now faint and dim. Kelechi, the father who once condemned his own son, stepped forward through the crowd. His eyes were swollen with tears. He fell to his knees beside Tari and whispered, "Forgive me? My son, I did not see. I only feared. Nadia placed a trembling hand on his shoulder, her voice barely a whisper. He has already forgiven you. The heavens have too. A final flash of lightning illuminated the sky, not in destruction, but in glory. The clouds parted, and a single beam of moonlight shone directly on the boy. Tari's chest rose, slowly, then steadily. He opened his eyes. They were no longer just brown. They shimmered faintly with light. "Mama," he whispered weakly, "it's over." Sound. Rain softens. Birds begin to sing faintly. Rebirth atmosphere. The villagers began to cheer, crying out in joy and relief. Some shouted his name. Others whispered prayers of thanks. The chief raised his staff high. "Let it be known," he declared. "The curse is broken. The child is not our doom, but our deliverance." The people wept, embracing one another. For the first time in years, hope walked among them again, and high above, the red moon faded to silver, its light washing over the land like a blessing. Sound. Soft rainfall fading, gentle flute in the distance, birds beginning to sing. When dawn broke, the world felt reborn. The storm had passed, but its memory lingered, in the wet scent of the soil, in the mist that hung over the fields, and in the quiet hearts of those who had witnessed the night. The moon bled red. Nadia sat beside her son's bed as he slept peacefully for the first time in days. His breathing was slow, steady. The mark on his back no longer glowed, just a faint scar, shaped like a sunburst. She traced it with trembling fingers, whispering prayers of gratitude. Olu, the old hermit, stood in the doorway of the hut. His eyes carried the calm of a man who had seen prophecy come to pass. "The boy carries the balance of both worlds," he said softly. "Spirit and flesh, fear and faith. The mark was never a curse. It was a bridge." Nadia looked at him, her eyes glistening. "And what of me?" she asked quietly. "What am I now?" Olu smiled, the corners of his lips hidden beneath his beard. "You are the mother of prophecy, the one who chose faith when fear was easier. That is your mark, Nadia. The courage to believe." Sound. Distant village sounds. Children laughing, people working, goats bleating faintly. In the days that followed, the village of Ekin came alive again. The fields turned green faster than anyone remembered. The rivers, once cracked and dry, now sparkled with running water. Fish returned, birds nested in trees, and laughter echoed through the valley once more. The people rebuilt their homes, not just with wood and clay, but with hope. Even those who once condemned Nadia came to her with offerings, baskets of fruit, palm wine, and humble apologies. Mama Chica approached her one morning, tears rolling down her cheeks. "We were blind, my daughter," she said, bowing her head. "Fear made us cruel, but the gods have shown us mercy through your pain." Nadia lifted her up gently. "We all walked in darkness, Mama," she said, "but light only matters when it returns to those who lost it." That night, the chief called for a ceremony of renewal. The entire village gathered under the great baobab tree, its roots glowing faintly with lantern light. Drummers played a slow rhythm, the heartbeat of the land. Elders poured libations to the earth, to the spirits, and to the sky. The chief stood, holding a carved staff. "Let this night be remembered," he said, "not for the curse that almost destroyed us, but for the courage that saved us. The gods have spoken, and they spoke through love." He turned to Tari, who stood beside his mother, still thin but radiant, with calm strength. "You are no longer the marked child," the chief declared. "You are the keeper of balance." The crowd erupted in cheers. Children danced around him, tossing flower petals. Drummers quickened their beat, and women began to sing. Songs of forgiveness, songs of dawn. Sound, rhythmic drumming. Voices rising in unity, soft ululation. As the celebration filled the night, Nadia stepped away from the crowd, looking up at the moon, now pure white, bathing the land in peace. Olu joined her quietly. "Do you see?" he said. "Even the heavens forgive." Nadia nodded, smiling faintly. "I see. But the world will forget, one day." Olu chuckled softly. "Then tell the story again, when they do. Every generation needs to remember that fear feeds curses, but love breaks them." Sound softens. Flute melody returns. Years passed. The boy became a man. Wise, kind, known across lands as the healer who spoke to both men and spirits. He traveled from village to village, carrying the symbol of the sunburst on his back, teaching people that faith is not blindness, but light found in dark times. And Nadia, she grew old beneath the baobab tree, her hair silver like moonlight. She watched the children play, their laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves. Sometimes at dusk she would look up at the sky and whisper to herself, "I feared the mark." But it was never the mark that cursed us. It was the fear that lived in our hearts. She would smile then, as the wind carried the scent of rain through the village, a reminder that balance was restored. Sound. Gentle rain begins again, soft chorus humming "ah" behind narration. And so, the tale of Nadia and her son became legend, a story told by firesides and riverbanks, a warning and a promise that every curse can be broken, not by strength or sacrifice, but by the courage to love what others fear. Narrator. Final lines, slow and deep. In the heart of Africa, where gods walk among men, a mother once defied the voices of her village, and through her faith saved not only her son, but the soul of her people. Sound fades, drumbeat slows to silence, final wind chime.